these are the real conversations that, the people miss out on before we start talking about the news. We go in depth about the Nestle Candy Corporation.
It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate, oh yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Dillard.
And my name is Mike Royer.
And this week we're looking behind the scenes of New Warriors.
Oh, whether they like it or not.
It was never released, and it was put online, so therefore we have it. Marvel adds movies through the year 2024, and we're going to speculate what those are.
Mm-hmm.
Mike loves theorizing. I can tell right now. Yeah. He's looking forward to this.
You know it.
Sony lays out some pretty big video games that actually fit into this podcast genre and more.
Yeah, well, let's just take it back a couple of seconds. I love it when Chris wants to start the podcast at a certain time, and then he's like a half a second behind. So it's almost like you're like running into the room like Kramer on Seinfeld because you're like, "Hey, hello, everybody."
Exactly.
So I love the energy that you bring to the first millisecond of the podcast out of just like sheer
I'm establishing my dominance on the podcast. Okay,
yeah.
I'm like, look, this is when it's happening. We're doing it now.
Yeah, and I'm drinking a soda that has milk in it right now,
yeah.
and not necessarily by choice. I just happened to turn this can of Japanese soda to the back, and it has like milk powder in it, and it's surprisingly like good and refreshing. It's like I was telling Chris before we started recording, it's like 90% like Sprite, like kind of like 10% like, oh, there used to be ice cream in this punch bowl. So it's really strange, but it's good. So I guess I'm going to be jiving on this Japanese soda as we talk about the the runtime of Venom, and then talk about nerds that hate Aquaman.
Yeah, well, I mean, Jesus, nerds hate fucking everything this week is what I'm hearing. So I'm gonna crack open something myself. I forgot to open my drink I got before we should. So
what do you got over there, Chris?
It's a brand called Hawks. It's called Dead and Buried. It's a hard berry soda.
Oh, look at you!
Or hard berry cider, I guess is what it is. But no, I'm we're going to talk about what we're watching, but one of the things before, I don't want to forget this. One of the things we're going to talk about is the Matrix trailer, right? At the end of the show. And because I've been working on my home and we got our kitchen stuff done, my wife is like, fine, we can go to the basement. You can finally start working on that because, no matter what time of year it is, you can always work in a basement, right? Like, it's not
true.
applicable to the outside weather. So I was like, I want to get it ready for winter. So I started painting, and I've been sharing some photos with you of the gray color. But I went ahead and splurged on a static frame theater screen. Are you familiar with this idea?
I have a feel. I could make guesses based off of the name.
Go ahead.
Okay, static frame. So is it something that just adheres to the wall through like just friction, or am I just making up a product in my head?
You're not. Yeah, you're making it up, but you're pretty close. So what I have now is currently if you buy a cheap projector screen, it's like grommets, right? You just hang the grommets on like corners, and you're like, okay, it's kind of just stretched out here on the wall. The static one means it comes with a metal frame, and you pull the fabric across it with springs and tighten the springs so there's no wrinkles, right? So you have this 10-foot diagonal frame, and then you mount that on the wall rather than hoping it the 3M hooks I have on the wall hold up the screen. So it'll always be the same size and always have the same like tautness of a screen, if you will. So I went ahead and bought that because I found out HBO Max has the 4K HDR Dolby Atmos versions of the original 3 Matrix on there, and I know we're getting excited to watch the Matrix and probably maybe do an early an older spoiler cast, if you will, an old review of those movies as we dive into that. But I was very excited to know that of HBO, of all the streams, they went ahead and fully beefed up the maximum version of the movies on there.
This makes sense. This is almost kind of like what NBC Peacock does with The Office. Like, okay, if you're going to be streaming the content that you've kind of made in-house and you're finally bringing it to your streaming service, like, give them the best version of it that you got. Because, like, I know with The Office, you can get, like, the extended episodes and a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that has never really existed anywhere. And I think they've also like pulled in a lot of the extra features that have been on like the DVD collections over the years. So yeah, if you're Warner Brothers, I mean, that's funny. Like that's the one movie franchise I associate with Warner Brothers more than anything else, I would say, is The Matrix, just because that logo turnaround, right? I feel like that's burned into my brain of kind of like the Matrixy letters that are juxtaposed with the Warner logo, like right up front.
Between that and Harry Potter, I was like, those are my two Warner Brother logos that go right into the movie icons. Like, like oh, there it is.
Even though we'll be talking about The Matrix at the end of the show, I'm looking forward to talking about it because, to me, I get almost kind of like Ghostbustery James Bond vibes when it comes to The Matrix for me. It's kind of like one of those big franchises that I feel like I don't have a big dog in the fight, but I have the capacity to enjoy it. So I'm curious what you're going to think about the trailer and what I have to say. So maybe this is just a new strategy for the podcast where we tease things that happen at the very, very end. So you stick around and you listen to us talk about, all the mishigas in the middle.
Normally, I put the big things in the top 3 items, right? If you haven't listened to our show, I put 3 items in the sentence right before we jump into the show. Mm-hmm. Everything else, I feel, didn't overweigh The Matrix, but like The Matrix is like a solid point where everything else has like multiple things around it. So I was like, oh, do I even mention it? But I'm very excited to talk about The Matrix with you and revisit it in high def. So speaking of things, right before I jumped on the show, this is going to tie into what we're watching, Mike. I was the most recent season of Fortnite just concluded at 4 p.m. And you have a big event. You jump into a lobby and you like go through this scheduled event kind of thing, right? You interact with it. Sometimes you shoot, sometimes you run around. It's pretty fun. Well, they ended it at like 4:20. And it's like that wrapped up. It's like, hey, we're gonna be down for like 12 hours, so it won't come up until like 5 in the morning. But one of the biggest skins to unlock the season was actually the introduction of Rick and Morty in the game. And last weekend, I think right after we recorded, the final 2 episodes of Rick and Morty season 5 dropped. So I binged that this week, kind of in the background while I was working on stuff. And have you caught up on these at all? Have you? I mean,
no,
we're not like diehard Rick and Morty people, but.
Yeah, I mean, I am a big fan of Rick and Morty, but we'll be talking about other animated stuff later in the show. Man, this is just a trend. We're just sneak peeking everything that's in today's episode. But when it comes to like the culture around adults that watch cartoons, like Rick and Morty's fan base, I would say is safe to say pretty toxic. So I usually like to almost enjoy a season of Rick and Morty like in private. Like I just kind of wait for it to all come out, and then I just sit down and I just enjoy it at my leisure and just remember what it's like to just enjoy things without like a fan base and like hashtags that surround it. So I will be jumping into it once it's casually available to my viewing.
I think this season probably is the most where I've heard the least amount of discourse about people.
Well, that's the funny thing. It's almost never about what's in the show, right? It's usually about just things that happen out in the real world or what somebody did wearing like a Meeseeks t-shirt outside of a bar or something like that, right? It's never really about the content of the show, which I would say is almost always very good. So that's why I just kind of like detached myself from the fan base.
I mean, thank God. I mean, I think we haven't had that kind of problem since the Szechuan sauce.
That was peak insanity.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure this season. I've not heard anything, so that's why I felt comfortable watching it, because I've not heard anyone do anything stupid. I've not heard of any one inciting incident where people go out and buy all the mugs that say Shoney's on it, right, or anything like that.
Oh yeah.
So I'm like, this is fine. I can finally watch this, and Rick and Morty is based on Doc and Marty from Back to the Future, but one of the ideas they took is actually from a Fantastic Four comic book called The Council of Reeds, and they put them in here called The Council of Ricks. So this season dealt a lot more with multiverses and stuff like that. I saw, which is funny because literally Marvel is doing the same thing at the same time. Yeah, and
so, DC also gearing up with the Flash, and was doing it on the CW even before that.
Yeah, so I mean, there's definitely a lot of I wouldn't say crossover, but definitely a lot of
multiverses are in the zeitgeist, which is good for big giant corporations like Marvel, who are pinning their entire franchise's worth on this idea, at least for the next couple of years. Because shows like Rick and Morty and other places are kind of making the idea a little bit more palatable, right? I guess I don't want to talk down to people that go see movies, right? But I got to imagine even back in the day when like pop culture first started inventing the idea of like time travel and all of these different ways that you can interpret it, I gotta imagine like some people were like a little confused, right? And then after a couple time travel movies, you know, came out, people were able to experiment more with the ideas, you know. So I'm sure we'll develop more on multiverses.
And you know this as well as anybody else might, but like, you know, you got to set the rules for a universe and follow those rules, right? Like you can't, like in a movie, if you set up time travel rules, you have to adhere to those rules throughout the whole movie. You can't, you know, kind of go willy-nilly. And I believe, was it like Planet of the Apes was like one of the ones where the big twist was it was time travel rather than a different world.
Yeah.
You know, again, Back to the Future, huge in popularity, but like multiverse is, you know, I'm not saying these people are doing like, you know, like the Flash or Rick and Morty are doing like watered down versions, but they're just like, they're not sitting there to explain. They're like, Rick and Morty talks down to its audience, like, you know, you're stupid, just move on. Like, we don't need to talk about this. But like, you know, the Flash is kind of like, hey, you know, here's a whistle if you want to come across the universe or something like that, multiverse. So, yeah, I think they're watered down, and then the Marvel ones are a little higher concept. Hopefully, knock on wood, it's not too high concept, but so far it's been fun. But yeah, I was able to go through Rick and Morty season 5, and one of the big episodes deals with it's in the trailers as a Voltron episode, right, where like you get 5 different animal creatures that form into one bigger animal or one bigger mech. And you know, as much as we talk about Gundam on here and stuff like that, because we are the two people who know the most about anime in the world. And you can definitely hear that in our conversations. I just thought that was really fun to see them always, Rick and Morty, skewer the tropes of other pop culture.
Yeah, the show lives and die on like tropes and pop culture references, which I think maybe some people might go to lengths of saying lazy, but like I just think it's fun. Like it's fun. It's a good time to skewer things like that.
Right, and it's not like it ruins it for everybody else, but like they were like, they can poke holes in things, right, and be like, you know, this is a problem with here, but they don't have to. Rick and Morty doesn't explain things to the audience. They just like, yeah, this is a problem, get over it and stuff like that. But season 5 kind of blew through pretty quick for me. And I think the issue is nothing really stood out, but they say that the next 2 seasons, season 6 and 7. We won't have to wait for like a year and a half in between for the next 2, so hopefully they can kind of crank those out and check that out. But yeah, I just thought that was funny. You know, Rick and Morty season 5 dropped whenever the end of Fortnite season ended, so got that going for us. Mike, you got something on here. I don't know what this next thing is.
Yeah, you seem to be perplexed. Don't worry, this has only ever showed up on the show one other time, and that was when I randomly watched a random season of American Horror Story on Netflix. I believe I had the day off. I didn't really have anything going on, and I watched the first episode of like the apocalypse season. I don't remember exactly what season that was, and then I didn't really want to sit through the rest of it, so I was like, I'm just gonna go crazy and watch the season finale. I'm just gonna go from episode 1 to episode, I think it was maybe 10 or 13, and just see what crazy journey happened. And there wasn't indeed a crazy journey. So that's really the only experience I've ever had with American Horror Story. But they've had some pretty off the wall branding around town for American Horror Story season 10 that I have to say, you know, sex sells, and it sells even harder when it's between a vampire and an alien, because there are billboards all over town with like a vampire looking creature French kissing an alien,
like a very stereotypical alien, is it?
Yeah.
Like, okay.
And there's a mysterious black pill that they're trading between their tongues. I mean, like, what a wild image for me to describe, right? And I mean, like, how do you at least not watch the first episode when you fire up Hulu and it's just right there in front of you? So we're like, all right, we're gonna give this a shot. This is nuts. We don't really have any a love affair with the show, so if we don't like it, it's not a big deal. So we dove in, and I was like, this is weird. This is like bananas. We're gonna keep watching it for sure. We actually never saw a trailer for the season until we went to go see Shang-Chi, and there was a trailer for American Horror Story season 10 in front of it. I don't remember if it was one of those actual trailers or if it was like one of those commercials before the movie like actually starts, but apparently the season is like either divided in half, and I think like maybe one half is the alien story and the other half is the vampire story, and I don't know if they cross over. And if you know, it sounds like you might know something, Chris. Don't tell me, because
I don't know. I don't know
details.
I don't know details. Okay. I've seen the trailers for this for several months, is my problem. And I've seen American Horror Story double feature is what I've been seeing it called. So whenever you put season 10 Red Tide. Is that the same one with the vampire and the alien?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
So far I'm only a couple episodes in, because we're watching it week by week now. They've only kind of dealt with like this vampire adjacent story, so I'm curious to see if there's going to be like a hard end, if it's going to dovetail into kind of like this black and white story that's in the trailer, or what's going on here. But it's fun because like American Horror Story is this weird collection of just like, you're bringing in a lot of horror tropes, but there's like this subtle underpinning of just kind of like cheesiness that also is, I would say, associated with some old horror movies and stuff like that. So there are some moments in the show that can kind of be like weird and creepy, but it's really kind of like this like campy, like just vibe overall. So like, you're never really too scared. But like, I watched, the last episode we watched was called Thirst, and I had never seen so much blood in one episode of a show before. And I'm sure they got like the dyed the dyed chocolate syrup, and then the dyed like what do they use, like high fructose corn syrup, or like they use like a dyed corn syrup, right, as well. So I'm sure they're using gallons of it for that episode. But it's just been fun. So I just wanted to give a shout out if you have a Hulu and you just want to get into something kind of like weird and kind of engaging. And there's also like this kind of Hollywood adjacent story connected to it as well. So I don't know if this is just like the incestuous part of like living in Los Angeles and like wanting to watch TV that talks about it. But me and my wife have been having a fun time watching it. So American Horror Story Season 10, they're, I guess, still working on the Red Tide part of the season at the moment, so you can check that out over there. But then I may have talked about this before on the show, but there's this great YouTube series called VFX Artists React, which if you're already kind of in like the like film zeitgeist on the internet, I'm sure you've already heard about it because it's pretty popular in that sector. But I just wanted to give a shout out to it that they've been doing these episodes for a while now, and for the first time, I would say they've had their first really, really big celebrity guest star to sit down with them and react to VFX stuff. And they had Seth Rogen this weekend, which was really, really cool. Apparently he was a fan of the show himself, just like it's just fun to imagine like big famous celebrity creators and directors just also scrolling through YouTube as well. And he wanted to come on the show and react to some stuff. So they react to some of his like favorite old movies and some of his own stuff that he's made, because he was able to offer more context around the VFX for some of the movies that he's been in. And it was just really fun. Just really big fan of Seth Rogen. He's like one of the few, I feel like, people in Hollywood right now that is, you know, I guess knock on wood, not crazy problematic at the moment. So you can kind of just indulge in his personality without feeling too guilty. Also, he raises a lot of money for Alzheimer's research as well. So hopefully if he does have anything shady in his past, maybe that'll kind of like, you know, glaze it over a little bit. But it was just a fun, you know, head on over to YouTube. It's the Corridor Crew channel, or maybe it's just called Corridor. I don't know what the hell they call their YouTube channel now. I feel like they change the title of it every once in a while. But VFX Artist Reacts featuring Seth Rogen. Really, really fun. Dive into it. I don't know if you've ever watched any of these before.
No, I mean, I'm not much of a YouTube viewer, if you will. So it's. I do watch stuff on there, but I've not watched any of that stuff.
I would say the show itself is produced really, really well. It's highly edited, so there's not like a weird, like lingering conversations that you might hear on our own podcast. The normal episodes usually range between like 12 to 15 minutes. This one was a little bit longer because they had a big celebrity director creator on there. It was about over 20 minutes long, but yeah, they do VFX artists react. They also do stuntmen react, and they also do animation artists react to animation stuff. So a plug over there. I got the link in the show notes too if you just want to find it directly. Superheroslate.com. Check out the show notes for today's episode.
Exactly. Show notes. So let's jump into the show, because I've got to actually make an update to our website later based on some schedules. But let's jump into this. Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Mike, this has not been updated on the site, but it will be by the end of the show. By the time it gets posted, has moved up to October 1st, 2021. So it actually moved forward. It jumped forward 2 weeks from its original release date of October 15th. There had been rumors back and forth all day, all week long. Like, is it going to get delayed? Is it going to be pushed to January? What's the moviescape like? And based on the success of Shang-Chi, and we'll talk about that later in the episode, they have decided to just go ahead and move it up and stick to a theatrical release, and that's fine. Go watch it in theater, not go watch it in theater, whatever. But I think one of the I wouldn't say cool. One of the bigger notes to make of this is they've revealed it's a 90-minute length movie. which means it's one of the shortest comic book movies. Now, that doesn't indicate quality of a film by any means, but that means I don't think we're going to have any BS in this movie, Mike. I think it's going to be like a jump and go kind of film, if you will. So, we've talked about watching. So, like, I'm glad they didn't start selling tickets and then move it, because that would be a dick thing to do. So I think tickets are now on sale, but I've not really looked at watching it.
They are on sale because, unfortunately, it being moved up 2 weeks has it conflicting with my wedding anniversary. So I had to have broach this conversation with my wife of just like, okay, I don't know how you feel about the Venom franchise. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to watch this movie. If you don't want to see it, no big deal. I'll just go watch this and knock it out. So this is one way of me saying this is good news in a sense of this movie is only 90 minutes long. I guess Andy Serkis has given me a gift along with his editors of making this like one of the shortest comic book movies that's out there. And I also saw a headline that says like, when you announce a runtime for a movie, that also includes the credits as well. And this is going to be a very VFX intense movie. So you know the credits are not going to be short. So the actual narrative of this movie is going to be incredibly short and brisk, which hopefully works out in its favor. So, I mean, all of like the feelings I have about Venom all stem from the first movie. All you have to do is go back and listen to our review of the first Venom. I don't think any of us were particularly jazzed about what we saw, but you know, we'll see if Andy Serkis brings his own flavor to it. It looks like one of his flavors is let's get these people in and out and sell these tickets. So I don't know, maybe he's making some back end on it, right? Because the shorter your movie is, the more showings you can cram into one day. That's probably not it, but it's funny to think about it that way.
Well, I think also, you know, you only really have one other villain in this, right? You've already set up who Venom is, and you just gotta like, oh, here's Carnage. He's a blood-infused bonded symbiote, and here's their fight against each other. I think that's really, that's all it boils down to, right? So like, why make it longer? Why fluff it up a bit? If we kind of already know what it's gonna be. And it being PG-13 means, you know, it's going to have a lot more audience as well, which we were kind of on the fence whether it be R or not. So maybe there's a longer R-rated or unrated cut, if you will, and they cut a bunch of it out to hit that PG-13 mark.
Yeah. I suppose that would end up on that would be Netflix eventually, right? They're the one that had the streaming rights for the Sony stuff moving forward.
If they do a direct or not director's cut, an unrated cut, if you will.
Yeah. So I guess maybe we'll see it there.
Yeah. So that's coming up. So you can start catching tickets on Thursday, September 30th, but it officially releases October 1st, Friday. So that'll be here before we know it. I feel like that's literally around the corner. And yeah, we'll be checking. I probably won't catch that on a Thursday, if I'm going to be honest. So I think, you know, hopefully we'll have it by that Sunday, but I'm not gonna promise Thursday night screening for myself. Moving on, Aquaman. I'm gonna link this to you, Mike. But if you go to James Wan, showing off a new look for Orm, Ocean Master, played by Patrick Wilson. He's got long hair and a beard. He looks very, I don't know, like hippie-ish, if you will. Like, remember how he's like bleach blonde?
I'm on James Wan's Instagram page right now. This just looks like Jesus at the beach. Yeah. You know, he's shredded in the abs like Jesus. He's got the long beard and hair, the tattered clothes. Yeah, this looks like when people were using... I can't think of his name, the actor that played Obi-Wan in the prequels. Why can't I think of his name? Ewan McGregor, when he was in that movie, like literally about Jesus wandering the desert. Like, this looks like he could he could be in the movie as well. Patrick Wilson with him.
Yeah. He was very short, blonde, bleach blonde hair, very clean cut. So it looks like maybe he's been in like a seclusion, or possibly
was he? I'm trying to remember. Was he I think he was jailed. I think he was like taken away and
he was taken away, but they didn't show where they put him or what they did with him. But again, an indication time has passed in this world. But it's been a while since we had Aquaman. So
he's pulling an Uncle Iroh from Avatar: Last Airbender. He's been doing push-ups in his cell, it looks like. Yeah.
And he's not got the blonde hair unless they're gonna dye him blonde, but I don't think so after this.
It's the ocean. It's the salt water. That's what it does to the hair, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I guess if you think about it, if you're like an Atlantean and you have like a prison, it does kind of make sense to put that prison maybe on the surface, right? I mean, that's almost kind of like solitary confinement.
Right, yeah, they wouldn't have their, I guess, their abilities or whatever, because they each had like an ability, kind of, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think it'd be kind of hell for him. So, yeah, you can check out that rough look there on James 1. His handle is Creepy Puppet, so it's a little
perfect for him.
Yeah, exactly. So, but speaking of Aquaman, we're gonna move on to a trailer for the upcoming animated show on HBO Max called King of Atlantis, and this trailer's 41 seconds or so, but I get huge Adventure Time / what's the other
I think what you're thinking of is the one season version of Thundercats Roar. This is
that's kind
aping the style from that, like almost 1-to-1.
Yeah, and I also get like Adventure Time like voices, like a lot of the same voice actors or possibly regular show like secondary characters. Like it is very much again, for lack of it's kind of skewering the idea of Aquaman just becoming king out of nowhere, like being a land dweller, and then be like, now you're king of Atlantis, and he's like trying to sit in like a throne chair, and it's not really working out for him, kind of thing. It looks funny. I mean, I don't know if I will watch a lot of this, but I don't see a problem with this show. Like
there you go. That's all you need to do, internet. Chris's response to this is exactly how an adult should react to a trailer for a cartoon show that I would say is intended for children. I'm not saying adults couldn't enjoy this, but everything about this, says HBO Max wants more kids subscribed to their streaming service, right? Because if you think about HBO Max and if you think about the children's content, I don't think they even crack like the top 3, like in like public perception of what I want my kids to watch, right? So yeah, I appreciate your very muted response, because if you go to the YouTube trailer and you watch it, the dislike ratio, it's almost like 50-50. People seem to be responding pretty negatively to this, but I think it's really just a vocal minority of people that seek out, trailers for this type of stuff. It's just really silly, because like this show has a very straightforward style that they're trying to do. They're trying to do something really wacky, goofy, squashy, stretchy, silly, satirical. Like this was a choice, right? It's not like they were sitting on like a high polished adult version of an Aquaman show and then decided to go this direction, right? And then also it's like a 3-part event. Like this isn't like a long-term thing. This is just like a little thing that they whipped up that all of a sudden people, I mean, like if you go and like watch this on YouTube, you can already kind of see like the reaction videos like in the sidebar of people just like, this is garbage, this is trash, and it's just like, you are an adult that's making a YouTube reaction to this. Like I can't stand adult animation fans, and they're just like the way that they get triggered. Like this kind of goes back to earlier when we were talking about Rick and Morty. It's just like you got to learn to just relax, people. Like this is such a low stakes scenario in your life before you die. An Aquaman 3-part cartoon series on a streaming service, even if it's a 5-season 26 episode thing, get the fuck over it. Like it's not for you, and if you don't like it, you don't have to watch it. That's the beauty. You're not losing anything by not watching it. And there are it's interesting because like there are Disney does this quite a bit with their animated stuff, right? Like there's currently a Spider-Man show going on for kids, and it's got it looks like CG animation, and it deals with spider people and like little kid stuff. It's fine. It's perfectly fine to have these things. There are audiences out there who need to be introduced to these characters, and if it's through some sort of popular animation style at the time that will live on a streaming service that they can watch, that's perfectly fine as well. It doesn't affect you. You don't need a reaction. Your quote unquote hot take isn't very hot at all, and just don't watch it. That's fine. Go watch something else. Yeah. And I don't know if the creative team like behind the writing is the same that was involved with Thundercats Roar. But like if you go seek out some of the Thundercats Roar stuff that was made in that one season that they made, it's fun to watch. I mean, like I have no nostalgia to Thundercats, right? It was just an old cartoon that was being replayed when I was a kid growing up. I didn't really connect to it on any deep level. I was just like, oh, this is a cool cat guy with like a transforming sword. Like, this is neat. That's about as far as it went, right? So when I just watched like this new version that created, it's just fun and silly and wacky, and like there's almost like no rules when they're drawing the characters, and things just like get all weird. It's just like, it's funny because I feel like if you just added some swear words to any of these two shows that I'm talking about and put them on Adult Swim, people's opinion would be totally changed, because they're like, oh, it's okay because they're swearing now, so now I can enjoy this like silly cartoon because it's for adults. So yeah. I don't know. I'll stop ranting about it. But if you are an adult that puts so much faith in like, you know, like what like cartoons are meant to be for you, like just settle down. That's
there are adult cartoons on HBO Max. There's Harley Quinn, of course. But you know, there's just this weird group online that's just like, yeah, we got to bitch about everything. Even if they made it for adults, Mike, they'd still be upset.
I do have to clarify, I am an adult that loves all types of cartoons. There's nothing wrong with being an adult and liking cartoons, but just have some forethought of like what you're looking at, right? Like if I want to take a critical eye and like maybe like review like the Castlevania show on Netflix, right? That is hyper focused on an adult audience. It's written just like a sci-fi drama that you would see on any like premium streaming service. Like, yeah, go in with your critical eye, you know, and review that and skewer it if you feel like it needs to be skewered, right? But like, what did you just watch? Didn't you see like the palette of colors and the rainbow that shot into your eyes? Like, have a little bit of like, whatever. We can move on. It just makes me upset.
It's a small 41-second trailer for King of Atlantis, and if you don't like it, you don't have to say anything. Just move on. You lost 41 seconds of your life. And
yeah, exactly.
You'll do that. All right, let's shift some gears. Things that old people want. Remasters of Knights of the Old Republic. How about that?
Oh, I couldn't think of a better way to say that.
Yeah, so if you played video games in the early 2000s to 2005, I think it was like a 2002 game, you probably came across Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, an RPG made by BioWare, I believe, at the time, and probably one of the best heralded Star Wars games ever to be released. People still talk about this to this day. They even, I think, came out several times and put them on like, you know, phones and iPads, right? Because they can emulate that kind of game. And so instead of getting just re-releases, we're finally getting a remastered version of this. And I believe this was during a PlayStation State of Play, which is going on this week, is only coming to PlayStation, or it might have a limited window to PlayStation. I don't know the answer yet. But if you're a fan of Knights of the Old Republic, KOTOR as they call it, you might be having to get a new PlayStation or a PlayStation 5. I don't have much details. They didn't even show anything other than a voiceover saying, you know, you're gonna have to fight the worst Sith in the world, and it shows Darth Revan's face at the end of it. So
yeah, I'm curious what happens with this. I never played this game, but I did do a deep dive once on the lore and the story in like this game universe, and it's kind of insane, and I don't really know exactly how approachable it is to just like kind of like a common audience. I don't know, maybe it just is told a lot more eloquently when you play it throughout a game.
It's pretty good. If you aren't keen on getting the new one, I think it's sometimes like under $5 on the App Store, and you can play it like with your PlayStation controller and your iPad if you ever wanted to.
Yeah, and also like the term remastered, and with the highly polished kind of brief like teaser that they showed us, it makes me think that they're going kind of like the route of like the Final Fantasy like 7 like remake. Yeah. Like this is going to be like a whole. This is basically a brand new game. And it's being rebuilt from the ground up, but they're just using the old game as like the blueprint. It's not like they're adding like higher textures to the old game or anything like that.
The developer specifically said, or the producer said, that they're rebuilding it from the ground up with modern visual technology and maintaining the integrity of the story and character from the original. So there are some twists and turns in this game that a lot of people would know 20 plus years later, but you know. Kind of updating that a little bit to modernize would be perfectly fine. I wouldn't say so much like Final Fantasy VII Remake, but like they could go like a little bit down the road.
Or probably more like the new Demon Souls. I think that was more closer to like a one-to-one recreation. But of course, when you go back that far and you make something brand new, of course you're going to add new stuff, right? Nobody wants literally the exact same game. Yeah, follow the story, but add some new like side quests and stuff, you know, add something new to explore. So this is great because I've never played the game game before, and even when I did that deep dive into the story, I only just barely remember what happened. So I think I can play this with almost like fresh eyes, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I sit in the same realm. I played it probably in 2003, 2004 in high school, but I don't remember it much. I never revisited it at that time. So, and I have it for iPad, and I started playing it, I believe I think it was on actually an airplane flight out to you a couple of years ago. But it's not something I pick up and think about a lot. But I'm very interested in this because, they say that, they're trying to bring in original developers from the original team on this, but gameplay back then on consoles, Xbox, PlayStation 2, stuff like that doesn't translate well today, right? Like, you're gonna have to make some changes, or else people are like, this game feels old and slow and not very smart. So I'm hoping that they change it enough to make it feel fresh.
What do those meetings look like between like the old developers and the new developers? Like, well, back in my day, we only had 4 polygons to make a laser blast. So I suggest we upgrade it to 8. And they're just like, what's a polygon? We don't even use those anymore. What do they use? Like the points of like lights, or I don't even remember what they call them, but they're using something totally different now.
I don't think the people are going to be like 80 plus.
No, Chris, they are. That's the only way you make it like authentic. It's kind of like when you remake a movie, right? And you bring back the oldest actor that's possibly from it just to give it that legitimacy, but they're like, they can't even see, they're blind, they're just technically there. It's like going to be one of those things.
How about this? Let's make it relevant. You bring in old Mark Hamill as old Luke Skywalker, and you give him a copy of the game, the original game. He just throws it behind him.
So I swear to God, if you computer synthesize his voice again, I'll riot.
He just takes case and throws it behind him, and everyone riots because they're mad at everything. No one hates Star Wars more than a Star Wars fan. That's for sure.
That is the truth.
So that's coming. So far, it's PlayStation 5. I don't know why it would be console specific unless they bought the rights to it. I don't know. It can go either way, but there are plenty of reasons to buy a PlayStation 5 right now, Mike. And one of the other ones is the announcement this week, the official announcement of Spider-Man 2, the sequel to the 2018 game Spider-Man, which was the reason I bought a PlayStation 4 to begin with.
Chris, I didn't even know this stuff was happening this week. I was like in the middle of working, and then all of a sudden in the middle of the day, it's just like, why is there so much PlayStation news in my timeline right now?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is crazy.
Yeah, so Mike, you and I both played the Spider-Man games, and then the sequel, right, Miles? We both played it. This one confirms both of them are in this game in their Spider-Man suits, but also gives us a very, very visual on what they're going to be using as Venom in this next video game as well.
Spoilers, it looks exactly like Venom. Like, this is very true to the origin of what the character looks like. And I should say with a caveat, I haven't seen very many different versions of Venom that don't look like Venom. Even the one that's in Sam Raimi's, like, Spider-Man 3, still looks exactly like Venom. He's just, like, skinny, right? It's just, like, not a bulked-out Venom. So usually they're always pretty authentic representations of the character. But that wasn't that much of a surprise, right? Because, if you played the first game and you, like, stick around to like the quote unquote like kind of after credits part of the video game, like we all kind of knew Venom was coming. But I won't spoil the origin. Like there's going to be it seems to be there's going to be a different person underneath the symbiote as opposed to what we usually see in the comic books. And I love the turn and the direction. It's actually really, really smart. I'm surprised they never kind of took this direction in the comic books or even like the movies, because this actually makes a lot of sense for this character in Spider-Man's world to become Venom. So I'm looking forward to see how that plays out in the video game. Yeah,
and the Venom will be voiced by Tony Todd. He's actually the character who plays Candyman, which is actually what that movie just came out. The remake just came out recently. So he's a known horror voice actor. Tony Todd will be voicing Venom. But I think the biggest thing here, there's a mysterious man doing a voiceover with a very distinguished accent and talking about the greatest thing he's ever done. And I'm pretty sure it's Kraven, and this will be kind of modeled after Kraven's Last Hunt, I believe. So I believe that this will be Kraven's Last Hunt, because also in that comic book series, Spider-Man has the black suit whenever Kraven's hunting him. So I believe, I could be very wrong, but if Spider-Man gets a black suit along the way, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
In
Now
this game.
I'm going to pitch an idea, a segment for the game. I don't want it to be a main mechanic, and I don't want it to be a mission that goes on too long. You know, like the stealth missions with Mary Jane that were just kind of like, let's just get these missions over with. Like, they weren't the worst thing in the world, but like, I want to be Spider-Man. I want to be swinging. I don't want to be like Mary Jane sneaking around. But like, imagine if for like a brief moment you got to play as Kraven, like hunting down Spider-Man in the black suit, right? It would be like kind of like the first time you've had this position where Spider-Man is the antagonist and you're trying to like hunt him down. I think that could be like really fun and almost like kind of creepy when you think about it, because Kraven is like a human being. He's like a not meta or really super powered in any way. You know, he's kind of like, you know, Batman. He's just like highly skilled with a certain set of skills. So imagine trying to hunt somebody that is super powered and then also being infected by something that kind of makes him like evil adjacent. Like actually could be like really creepy and like scary. So it'd be fun like to switch the roles maybe just for one mission. But also it could just be fun swinging around with like different symbiote abilities. Like we got the feeling of what's it like to swing around the city as Miles, and it pretty much interacts the same way. You just kind of have some more flair when you're swinging. Like, well, what's it like when you're like a symbiote? Is it going to be more aggressive? Are you going to like slam into things like when you hit the side of a building instead of like gracefully running alongside of it? There's some fun stuff that they could do there.
Yeah, there's, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the Ultimate Spider-Man game lets you be both regular Spider-Man and Black Suit Spider-Man, like on the fly, and I think there was another game too. But like, yeah, I think the biggest thing here is this Spider-Man has his own mechanical arms they've added to the trailer, right, in this universe, and B, Miles is here. So I've never seen Miles be infected by Venom. So like, what would that look like in this game if they're both being infected by Venom and his abilities with that?
Yeah, I wonder if that's been rendered artistically anywhere officially, like in the comic book space.
I have a Funko of a Venomized Miles, so it could very well be.
Yeah, I feel like it couldn't be that drastic of a change, right? Because the suit is already black, and that's kind of like the biggest color shift when you go to the black suit. That's the reason why the black suit is like, oh, such a big deal, because it turns black, which is just cool, because it's just cool seeing like color shifted suits. We talked about Aquaman's suit last week. That's kind of like, I don't know if it's black or dark gray or what exactly it was supposed to be. But yeah, it does make you wonder. I think they highlighted a little bit. It seems like there's going to be cooperative play in between the two Spider-Mans. I don't know if you're going to have another player on another controller, if that's going to be an option or not.
Well, I've heard single player, because that was my first thought. I'm like, single. What is this? Is this multiplayer? Is it single player? I've seen single player campaign, which is probably like one of the most disappointing things, like, cause I'm like, this would be a great opportunity to make it. And we've even talked about this, right? Like, you're two different Spider-Man. Maybe you're across the different map, and like you have a mission where like one person has to do something on the south side, one person has to do something on the north side of the island. Like, that would be, really, really fantastic.
I mean, maybe they'll just open up more of like a multiplayer like idea, right? Like maybe once you beat the game or, progress so far through the game, maybe you just unlock a different part of the spinning discs that you put into your PlayStation that's like, okay, well now I can go online and I can team up with people and do these specific things that will help me unlock different suits if I play with other people. Or it makes me wonder if they're going to do like hot swapping buttons, right? Like if you're doing a mission that requires both spider people, right? Could I don't even remember what triangle does or things do on the D-pad, but if I hit up on the D-pad, will I hot swap over to Miles or whatever? The crazy thing about these Spider-Man games is like you got to be into them when you're playing, right? Like I can't casually pick up Spider-Man if I've been away from it for like more than a month, because like you get more and more abilities as you progress through the game, and things get very, very intricate. Like once I got to the end of Miles, I had like this setup of how I took down these characters, because I had all these new Venom abilities by the end, and I had like this combo of things that I like to do. My fingers would not even remember how to attempt the combos that I was putting together. So it does make me wonder if you're hot swapping between the two spider people, could you even like comprehend the different play styles between the two Spider-Men? I mean, they're not drastically different, but you do have that set of Venom abilities with Miles for sure. Yeah, the ability wheel is different. I think it's going to be something akin to the game we're going to talk about next, or no, in two things. Oh, okay. But what we'll talk about, like, possibly is like maybe you're Peter in this one, right? Always Peter, or there's levels where you're Miles, and the other one is just a
an AI that's smart enough to help you along the way, kind of thing. And we'll talk about that more.
Or the stories could be like simultaneous, right? Like you wake up on a Wednesday morning, and then you play as Peter, and then you while you're saving like Brooklyn, because I guess it's I guess Miles would probably be Brooklyn, because it's been theorized that we might unlock a new part of the map, which would be Brooklyn. Like maybe while Miles is saving people in Brooklyn on a Wednesday morning, on the same Wednesday morning you shift over to Peter and he's doing different stuff in like Central Park or something like that.
And if Kraven is hunting you, who's he hunting? Is he hunting the big one? Is he hunting the little one? And maybe one of them gets captured and he uses the other that as bait, kind of thing. So I see there's a lot of good storytelling methods to do this.
Either way, like I'm so stoked for this game. We love those Spider-Man games. I love the mechanics. I love traversal in general. All traversal mechanics, like my brain is like hardwired to it. So I'm so down for more of this. I will have a PlayStation 5, I'm sure, by the time this comes out in 2023, hopefully. I'm down to play.
This will be the reason. I mean, this event will be the reason I get a PlayStation 5, and I already said that to you outside of the podcast. But my goal now is to get the Spider-Man themed PlayStation 5, because I have the Spider-Man themed PlayStation 4. So check out that trailer. It does say very distinctly at the bottom, rendered on a PS5 with the engine. So this should be what the gameplay actually looks like. And if you have Spider-Man and Miles and a PlayStation 5, I believe there are PS5 versions of those which use the enhancements to play better. So you can check that out. But the next surprise game, the same company, Insomniac, who's making Spider-Man, released a very small teaser for an upcoming Wolverine solo game.
Now this is where I wish I would have been watching live along with the event, because sometimes you always think like, oh, why would I watch this live stream when I can just like watch the trailers later, right? It's because you want to be like surprised, because they don't let you know right away when a trailer starts rolling, because this is great because it's just a teaser trailer just at the very, very, very end shows you claws come out of this guy's hand while he's sitting at a bar. And it's just like, oh, that's Wolverine. And it's something that no one has expected, right? Insomniac has done a great, amazing, flawless job representing the play style of Spider-Man in a video game. And it's really, really cool to see, like, now they're going to be taking on Wolverine.
Right. And Wolverine as a character does not have the mobility that either Spider-Man characters have, right? So, like, this is something that's, it's going to play something different. It's going to be, it looks like a different story. Is this set in the Spider-Man universe? I don't know yet. I would sure hope for some crossover, but if it doesn't, that's fine too. But like, being a Wolverine like means it's going to be like low and brutal, and he's going to have like slashing and hacking abilities kind of throughout the whole game. Now, I will tell you, and I told you this, there's a game called X-Men Origins Wolverine for 360 and PlayStation 3.
Not the movie, you're the video game, right?
Well, yeah, it was a video game called the same thing as a movie, but it's not, like, they actually built the video game before they even announced the movie, and then they went back and like had an extra year to add like a couple movie levels. But that game is fantastic in terms of like Wolverine gameplay. Ignore the name, just call it, the Wolverine game from the 2008, 2009, and it's fantastic because he has the ability to like launch off like people, like, and like lunge with his claws. So I'm excited to see what this looks, because this little animatic, now it's not gameplay, gives us a lot, like, but a little bit at the same time. I noticed that Wolverine, the first thing I look at, his injuries or his blood is maybe not healing as quickly. So like his hand cuts aren't like completely healed by the time we see him, right? So like, is this like a not a rapid healing Wolverine? What kind of character is he? And
yeah, or we could have just assumed that this fight literally just happened, right? Because he never really heals instantaneously. We could see maybe he's down on his luck. This is exciting because like I like how there's two different interpretations of kind of like the Wolverine character out there in pop culture, right? Like the movies have shown us like the Hugh Jackman version, which I would say is more of like a brutal Wolverine. I wouldn't say he like lumbers, but not insanely athletic, right? He'd rather walk through a crowd of goons than like jump around and try to like stab him in the back or something like that. But then you kind of have like the animated / comic book version of Wolverine, which is much more of kind of like a pouncy brawler animal. Like, if you ever see him like take out one of those why can't I think of the big robots, the Sentinels. You see him like take out the Sentinels in like the animated TV shows. He's like hopping and bopping all over the place. So I'm curious to see what interpretation that they're going to take of the character. Like, is it going to be a more visual, like cinematic representation, but then the gameplay might feel a little bit more like he is a mutated person that is called the Wolverine. I don't know. I think it could be really, really fun. But also, I don't want to briefly glaze over this idea of a crossover, because there was like all of these rumors when the Avengers game came out. Oh, is it going to cross over with Spider-Man? There's been some story points where it could possibly work, but no one was really sure exactly how any of this video game stuff works. Right? We kind of have an idea of how it works within the MCU because what rights are associated with different studios, but like the video games are almost like wild west. It's just like, okay, well, who wants to license the idea at your studio? What's going to cross over possibly is probably another licensing agreement that's going to require a lot more contracts, and it might not even be legally possible based on how you started to begin with. But this all is happening at Insomniac. I mean, like, if Marvel's looking out there at their video game space, it's like safe to say Insomniac Studios is by far making the best Marvel content when it comes to a game, right? So when they also tackle Wolverine and how all things go superheroes, eventually things are crossing over. Like, I would not be surprised if maybe in like 2025 there's like a new video game that maybe it could be the scale of like the Miles game, maybe it's a little bit smaller, that has Wolverine in it, right? I mean, like, Spider-Man and Wolverine are like one of my like favorite like crossover like duos, right? You have like the straight man and you have like the goofy man. They're just like destined to be together on screen inside of my PlayStation, Chris.
Is that maybe that's the co-op game? Maybe where one person's on the ground and is Wolverine and the other one's Spider-Man, but like you can do like you can like Spider-Man's zipping around, he's not doing as much damage, but Wolverine's doing all the damage, and maybe they could set up some fastball specials, or like he throws Wolverine in with the stuff.
I suppose the only difficulty that you have is a lot of the fun when it comes to the Spider-Man game is traversing large swaths of the city, which Logan can't really do to an extent. I think you could have a lot of fun with him inside of a building, right? And you could go ham and go crazy, even in a large, like a gigantic lobby, right? There are some really big lobby set pieces inside of the Spider-Man game that I think you could go crazy with the Wolverine, but in a big cityscape, I don't really know. So maybe it's like its own adventure, right? Maybe they go off to like a different city or a smaller scale, something. I don't know, but like
right, it's not the New York map. Maybe it's a mission or something. Like it's smaller, but like rather than having two Spider-Men with like slightly different playstyles, putting a Spider-Man and a Wolverine would be definitely like, okay, who do I want to play as? Who do I want to be the best at?
Yeah, but I would say there's a lot more legitimacy to any sort of hope that you might have for a crossover now, because both of these games are under the same studio, and I think this studio is probably considered a darling for Marvel for what they're doing with the stuff. So.
Well, the problem with that is Insomniac is now owned by PlayStation, so they're only getting like a partial entry into the video game space, right? Like it's only like I'm going to say a third, because I'm going to do Xbox, Nintendo, and PlayStation. So I mean, I think they'd have better luck, or not be so precious, but like if again, Insomniac, they are a studio that I don't think misses, right? Like they did Spyro the Dragon, they did Ratchet and Clank, they have done Spider-Man, so like they are known for huge franchise video games. So I think maybe they're like, hey, what do you want to do next? They're like, let's make a Wolverine game. Like, that's great, let's do that. So hopefully they can do that. And I would love to see Wolverine be not more in the X-Men realm, because I think when you start putting him in with other mutants with more extravagant powers, right, like it gets a little weird. So I think having a very not closed off, but a very like Wolverine focused game where he looks like he's like out in a bar in like the wilderness somewhere, doing his own thing, is going to be a better story than trying to include every X-Men along the way with him.
Yeah, let me rough up some bar rats. That'll be fun.
So, and that's what the Wolverine Origins game was like. It was out in the woods. It was dealing with like, stuff like that. So I'm excited for this. There's no date on it, sadly, so we got to just kind of cross our fingers, but hopefully they can start cranking out more games soon because I don't want to wait. I don't wait for more after finishing Miles. I want to get into Spider-Man 2, so let's see how that goes. Now, I was talking about Spider-Man 2 having a partner system. Well, a game that kind of already has that is God of War, the new 2018 game, and they went ahead and gave us a full trailer for the upcoming sequel, God of War Ragnarok, which followed that. What's cool about Ragnarok is you play as, again, I forget the Kratos, right? And then you have his son Atreus, and his son, like, you can power him up separately, but he like does everything else as like an AI, and you can go like, hey, attack him or heal me or something like that, like basic commands. But like, he is a fully independent character on the realm of everything else, which I think is really cool. So this trailer came out. Mike, have you played the first God of War? I could not remember.
No, I know you've been telling me to play it for a while and recommending it, and I've seen some gameplay pieces of it, so I'm familiar with what it looks like, and it does look really, really fun. I was playing the expansion for Ghost of Tsushima, and there's actually an armor unlock that skins you to look just like Kratos. So that was fun to get a hold of that. But that's the most I've played God of War, is looking like Kratos in Ghost of Tsushima.
Well,
so
yeah, God of War is one of those games. I missed out on the originals. I watched people play the originals, but the other one, when it got into kind of Norse mythology, I was like, okay, this is kind of up my alley a little bit. And he's got a really cool, it's an axe that you throw as an attack, and then it comes back to you. It's got like a recall effect to it, kind of like Thor's hammer, if you will, in the Marvel movies.
Yeah, well, and speaking of that, like the video game and the trailer in general pokes the part of your brain that has like the MCU label on it, right? Because they're saying a lot of similar things. They say the words like Loki, they say the words like Thor, and you see like a hammer with like Norse writing on it in the trailer. So it's like that they're prodding that part of my brain and like purposely to make me go buy this game. So I just haven't gotten around to it. That's all.
I'd highly recommend. It'll probably be on sale sooner or later. If it's not, I think it's already under $20. But this one is great because this is a game they actually announced that it's PlayStation 5, but also the sequel will be on PlayStation 4 as well, Mike. So you don't have to jump out and buy a PlayStation 5 right as well. But I guarantee you it will look beautiful on a PlayStation 5 already. In the original one, you actually get to visit, like, I think 6 of the 9 realms that they talk about. We talked about realms last week, I believe, with Shang-Chi. And this one, you actually get to access all of the realms, including Asgard, which is not in the original one. So I'm very excited to kind of see this. And they say that this is the end of the Norse sequel or duology of games. It's not a trilogy. There's just 2 of Norse. And I'm kind of excited to see where it ends and what it sets up, because if they want to... Again, God of War, the god killer Kratos wants to go kill more gods. What pantheon's next on his list? Yeah. But again, watching this 3-minute trailer shows some gameplay, some footage. He has his axe and he has his chains, and then at the end you get to see Thor show up at their doorstep to kind of fight Kratos.
And it's a fat Thor too.
Yeah.
You don't get to see his whole character model in the trailer, but they released like character shots of him officially, and it's like this fat chunky dad bod Thor, bigger and more massive than the one that we saw in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I guess if you really dig that version of Thor, you're getting even more.
Yeah, like that Thor in there is just fat and doesn't take care of it. This Thor looks like like how
he could kill you very easily.
Like this isn't like, he's not flubby, right? He's not rolling through a scooter at Walmart kind of guy.
Yeah.
This is like a muscular big guy who's gonna knock you around. But also, if you can tell by his hammer, this isn't like Thor's hammer of Marvel. This is Norse mythology hammer kind of stuff. So
yeah, it's got a little bit more of a curvature profile to it.
It actually looks like a hammer rather than just like a block on a stick.
A bludgeoning device.
So looks pretty awesome. Again, I played the first one, really invested in it. My wife actually was really invested when I was playing the first one as well, so she's very excited for this one as well. So I'm very excited to pick this one up along the way. And so yeah, I'd recommend that. So you can check out that trailer here. So it is cross-generation capable, so PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. But you will pay a premium if you want to upgrade, which is like the dumbest thing in that. I'm just going to skip this next topic, Mike, because I think we've gone on too much. We'll talk about it next week. Let's go ahead and jump into Spider-Man No Way Home. Do you like it when things leak early from movies, Mike, that you're excited for?
I mean, not
Yeah,
particularly.
exactly. I didn't think you did. So there have been leaked videos and images possibly revealing, I say characters, but more like plot points from the upcoming movie that I just want to warn people about. I believe there's like, maybe it's a subreddit or a character who's like Spider Leaks or something like that. And he's been, putting some stuff out there. And I just want to let people know, if you want to go in as fresh as possible to these movies, especially Spider-Man, because I have a lot of goddamn questions about this movie, more than, even Eternals beforehand. Do avoid that. Do avoid the internet. Maybe still start throwing that into your blocked keywords, Mike, like Spider-Man leaks and
Have some respect, people. Chris and I had our own unique leaks for the Spider-Man movie like over a year ago, and we had the compassion to not just spoil it out there in the world, and we held on to it. And I'm curious to see if that's what you're talking about, if some of that stuff is coming to fruition from some of these leaked images.
None of this was surprising to me. If like, this isn't like gonna break the movie if you saw it, but like at the same time, I'm like, I'd rather just see official things rather than unofficial.
Yeah. Also, it's just more enjoyable to go into a movie not knowing things about it, right? Mm-hmm. So, and we're so close anyway, right? Like, just hold on a little bit longer.
Yeah, we are like, we gotta go through Venom in October, Eternals in November, then Spider-Man in December. Like, we are poised for a really good quarter here, final quarter of the month. So
and there'll be I think Hawkeye will be through that thread as well, and who knows, maybe we'll be surprised with maybe a Star Wars show that might possibly pop up in there. So there'll be some more geeky stuff to hold on to.
Star Wars Visions, I believe, is in 2 weeks as well. So we get that on Disney Plus. So there's a lot that we can be going into here, but like I say Spider-Man No Way Home stuff starting to get out there. Doesn't look like it's new stuff, look like it's old stuff, but just letting you guys know at the end of the day. Box office update for Shang-Chi real fast here, Mike. I sent you photos of people like just trashing this movie on YouTube before it even came out. Like, oh my god, it's a bomb, it's the worst movie ever. People, Marvel's changing their minds. Shang-Chi went on to have the #1 Labor Day on record from any movie released. Not even just pandemically, really, but like ever. I think the other one was like 2008, 2009's Halloween from Rob Zombie. So this movie is killing it. I think it made more money than they expected over Labor Day weekend. And then also the second weekend had much less of a drop. It's still #1, didn't make as much, but like it's still bringing in box office numbers.
One thing that I never realized until it hit that record, for all things being fair, obviously we liked the movie. We talked about it last week on the spoiler cast. I'm surprised Labor Day weekend has never really been a big cinematic weekend, right? Like, it seems like they're almost always looking for big extended weekends, so films will have more time to make money at the weekend box office, right? But I guess I never realized that Labor Day wasn't a weekend where they really put out a lot of big movies, which helped Shang-Chi reach that record for sure. But originally it was supposed to come out earlier in the summer. It's not like that Labor Day weekend was always the target, right? So I think that helps with a little bit of context, which is why like second place is like a Halloween movie, right? It seems like, you would have a bigger movie up there, right? I guess it just, when you look at like the old kind of strategy with releasing big movies over the summer, it's just like, why would we want to wait till Labor Day, like kind of the unofficial end of summer, to put out our big blockbuster when we have all summer to do this? So that's why Shang-Chi originally was going to be earlier in the summer, but it kept getting pushed to the end of summer. So it's cool that they did get that record-breaking moment for sure, and it makes me wonder if this is going to change the landscape a little bit moving forward, like when the pandemic is hopefully long in our rearview mirror, and like the movie schedule gets to go back to something that's slightly more normal. Will Labor Day weekend now be a tentpole movie weekend? Has Shang-Chi like unlocked that? Like, is that the new achievement they got on their video game console? Like, hey, Labor Day weekend, now a big movie weekend. Surprise.
Based on a topic in 2 seconds, or in two down from here, I'm going to say no, it didn't do that yet. But that's not saying that everything's set in stone. I think Labor Day is hard. We always talk about movies going to January to die. It's what we always joked about, right? September is where they put them to die. Because everyone, again, I now work in a retail corporate space, and September is our lowest month of the year because everyone comes off of spending money on vacations and back to school and moving in August that
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about back to
that
school.
nobody's going to see movies that first month back to school yet. So it's definitely an interesting month. I don't know if it'll ever change, but for those who are like, oh, Shang-Chi's a bomb and will fail, don't listen to those people. Like those clickbaity thumbnails mean nothing in terms of the long run. So.
Clickbaity thumbnails. I had to resist the urge to make them myself.
Yeah.
When we put the podcast together, like,
yeah,
but
we're here for news. We're not here for pulling your leg or tricking you folks. So we'll do that. I'm failing on the show notes this week, Mike. I was telling him I made him in a car ride Friday, and I actually didn't include the link to the next image. So hopefully you're looking it up.
Yeah, I'll look it up. Hawkeye.
Yeah, Hawkeye.
Pizza Dog.
Hawkeye, Kate Bishop, and Pizza Dog are in a subway.
It's funny. I didn't even need to look it up because I just envisioned it in my mind's eye of a golden retriever in front of a film camera. That's exactly what I'm looking at here. It's just a golden retriever. Yeah. But I guess it's just more of a confirmation that the dog from Matt Fraction's kind of famous run of Hawkeye is in the
Pizza
show.
Dog's in there. Pizza Dog. If you have Hawkeye, you have Pizza Dog. He's actually part of the Avengers game too, right? And the Marvel's Avengers game. When Hawkeye came in, he brought along Pizza Dog as like a character on the helicarrier, and then there's like an emote where you can like bring him in through like a teleporter. But I mean, it's
he's a bachelor's best friend. He'll just hang out with you in your New York loft, eating pizza, and he'll go on adventures with you, and he just looks like he's a good boy.
Yeah, I think other than the dog, which is the highlight of this still, Kate is carrying like a very, very old longbow that like elven warriors might carry. They're also in winter clothes, so it looks like this will be like a wintertime kind of setup. But like every Hawkeye screenshot I've seen of these two, it looks like he's saying something serious, and she's like, "You did not just say that to me. Like I'm gonna go do exactly the opposite of you said." So I'm hoping that we get a trailer soon. I believe we're halfway through What If, right? And if this is next in November, hopefully we get something, some footage sooner than later.
Yeah, I keep forgetting, when is that streaming day for Disney Plus?
It's like early November, like the 12th or something like that.
Okay, so I feel like that might be too late for a Hawkeye trailer, but we could have a teaser trailer and then maybe a more elaborate trailer for Hawkeye, maybe when that streaming day comes.
That's kind of how Netflix does it, right? Like less than 30 days before they start marketing the actual show they're showing. Yeah. So, they may be taking that approach. We'll see. But November, I believe 24th down the road. But that's great. Next big news out of nowhere, Mike. On Friday, Marvel's like, hey, guess what? We're putting 4. I think they actually put 6 more dates on our calendar. 4 more for 2024, Mike. We are getting 2024. And I can't believe that they're already planning movies out this far in advance.
Yeah. I mean, and before you start rattling off these dates, I did happen to come across this slideshow that IMDb had put together just within the last day or so. And it's just like this photo slideshow of just 25 Marvel properties that are in development right now.
The first one's Venom.
And I guess I had just never really internalized the number exactly, but like when you click through them all, it's just like they are doing so much right now. I think the only thing that I didn't really see on this list was like those kind of like weird like Amazon Prime like Spider-Man spin-off characters that they've kind of talked about, so that wasn't included on the list. But it's insane that there's like 25 things on the docket. Now that includes movies and streaming shows, and I don't really know if you would exactly count the I Am Groot show, because isn't that supposed to be like that's supposed to be like more like animated, just mini series type thing. I don't know how canon that's gonna really be long term.
It is, but they announced it during the Disney Plus Marvel panel, so there does leave a big question mark on it.
Yeah, but either way, 25 things like this, it's insane. I don't think we've ever had this quantity of things that we have to maintain in our heads, Chris, when we talk about the show. Like I'm gonna need to have like a ledger in front of me, like physically like printed off, that I can just look at like while we talk about this stuff, because as you rattle off these dates, like there's 25 different things that like I feel like we could put in these date slots now, right?
Here's like these slots are movies, so actually the majority of this slide is off the list. Like 20 items on this slide are Disney Plus productions. So those are TV shows, and the hardest part is like they're not going to give us any of those dates or years for those Disney Plus productions until like 3-4 months in advance. So I can't even put those dates down. But I will tell you some other things that we've talked about that may be in here that are like in there. So 2024, we have forward to look forward to February 16th, May 3rd, July 26th, and November 8th. And that is about standard fare, I think, right? Like that's what a normal year for Marvel would look like.
Then this would be 2024. That's what you're saying for those specific.
Yeah, those are all 2024.
You got like a February date, which is where you might see like a Deadpool kind of adjacent movie. You got May, which is where you're going to put like a really big heavy hitter. And then July, I don't know. I just always associate July with Spider-Man. I think that's just a tick in my brain that might not necessarily be true. And then November also, I feel like November, like I always associate like with like Guardians of the Galaxy, something like that. Always a big movie as well.
Yeah, and November's where they usually put like a new property, right? Like Guardians was never in November, but like they're putting Eternals this year. Doctor Strange was a November property. Like that's where they're putting like their new characters where they want to test a little bit. July, I agree with you, is Spider-Man, but I think this is a late July 26th, so it might be something else, which is pushing up on the end of summer there. Some of the rumored stuff, we've talked about Deadpool 3, obviously, kind of it's on this list for production, but like Captain America. What about Captain America 4? The Sam Wilson. Do you think like that would be a good time for that? My cat is yelling at you, Mike. She wants to say hello.
Well, it's funny. You would think Captain America would be perfectly slotted for like the beginning of July, around July 4th. But I guess if you gotta have to put a movie out in May, no, because I'm getting my months confused because then it has all June to play. Like, why isn't something coming out? I wonder if maybe something else is slotted from another studio that's really, really big. Like the Avatar movies are supposed to be coming out in like December, right? So it couldn't be. I'm just curious why they wouldn't slot
an
in
early
for
July one,
the July holiday. Yeah, I wonder if there's any like big movies set for there that they know of. Maybe like a different Disney property, right?
Could be,
like it could still be a Disney movie, it's just not Marvel related.
Could be Disney.
Maybe it could be Star Wars.
Well, it could be Star Wars. Could be something more along the lines of like a Warner Brothers property. Like I could see them doing Fantastic Beasts in that time frame that no one wants to really compete with, or something else.
Maybe. I mean, I'm looking at our own upcoming release calendar, and the only thing that we have on 2024 right now is just Star Wars. But that's kind of slotted maybe there in the December line. So
and they have insider info. They know what Universal and WB are making, right? Like it's not. They
got their spy. They got their spies all over town.
The biggest question is, do you think this would be the year 2024 they put an X-Men movie in studios, Mike?
I really don't know. I feel like right now I just have to put my full faith in Kevin Feige that he knows exactly how to eloquently introduce mutants and X-Men into the universe that's been created, right? Because I feel like you just can't do it the standard way that they've been telling the X-Men story, right, for years and years in the comic books or in animation form or however you want to do it. Like they're going to have to find a new creative way to get into this idea of mutants, and like, if Wolverine's going to be like a real character out there in the world, like where has he been? Because he's this unaging character almost, like that has battled in the Civil War. Like where has he been during all these events, right?
If Eternals pulls it off, I don't think that'll be a problem. I think the concern was X-Men was created in the 60s. The 60s means everyone in the 60s, including Professor X and Magneto, had history in World War II. Right? Magneto was a Jew who was persecuted during the Holocaust. So you can't do that in 2020s, right? Like 80 years later, this guy would be 100 years old.
Yeah.
So,
and I feel like, and if you're kind of leaning into these old ideas, I'm not saying old is bad, but the kind of original idea of these characters, you do start to think like, well, maybe the only way to really bring in these old ideas of the characters is through some sort of like multiversal collapse, right? Like, we've been watching What If, we've seen how the world can change just through like, one event. Like maybe there was one event way, way, way early on in human history that created mutants, and then that's been running its own timeline, and then the multiverse of madness collapses onto each other, and now all of a sudden we're all into one, perfect timeline, and now now all of these things exist. I don't know if that's too messy.
Right.
I don't know if they maybe want to reinvent it. We've had a lot of X-Men movies, right, already that have run this whole like storyline down. So maybe it is time for something new. I don't know. But from what I get, and it looks like you have it slotted here for 2023. It seems like Kevin Feige's priority right now is Fantastic Four.
Right.
That's kind of the new team that he wants to launch and get people excited for and do it right. And then it kind of seems like, okay, now once I get that off of my like to-do pile, then I can start to think about the X-Men a little bit more seriously.
Well, here's the thing. I think Fantastic Four is already a done deal. I think if we assume he's waiting until a movie comes out and then is working on the next one, I think we're thinking too short. And he's playing the long game. I think Fantastic Four will be 2023, X-Men 2024, and then kind of work their way through those sequels. But X-Men can't be the story of two old guys who were in World War II finding out they had powers anymore. Like that's never going to work, even if they had a universe to themselves.
Yeah. Also, I don't want to start like a whole like woke conversation around X-Men, but I think like one of the last X-Men movies that we had is like somebody brings up a really, really good point. Why do you call it X-Men? Like half of the people in there are women. And like we live in a society now where like the way that you gender things are not insignificant. Like you can't just automatically assume the default for everything is like as men, because that does affect society even in like a small to large way over the years. So like what is Disney, this somewhat like progressive company, gonna look like when they make a movie and call it like X-Men? Because like it's not just, are you always going to make that like that dumb like one-off joke every time you make an X-Men movie? There's always going to be a female like X person in the background going like, why is it got to be X-Men? And then we all laugh and then we continue on because the properties just existed for years. I feel like they just got to find a new way. Like I almost think like maybe the quote unquote next X-Men movie might just be called X, or maybe it'll just be called Mutants or something like that. I feel like they're gonna kind of like change the name but keep the same idea.
If what you're saying is nothing new. They've dealt with it in the comics for years as well. Like why is it the X-Men? And it's a title, it's a group name. It's like like the Beatles or something like that. Like they usually find ways that are like, we don't have to deal with this except the first time. However, with the way Marvel works, rather than going along the lines of New Mutants, one of the newest series a couple of years ago was called House of X, and they use it like House of X, but like X implies Xavier's involved, right? So do we even need Xavier with the mutants going forward?
Well, I guess I suppose that you could have a really intense nerd conversation of like, where does that X come from? Is it from like the X gene, or is it from Xavier?
It's Xavier. I mean, yeah, you can do it, but I think the thing is like they're like there's now like Cyclops is the leader and Jean Grey was like the teacher kind of thing. Like mutants who are like more I would say younger, but like less I wouldn't say controversial, but like they don't have that long history to deal with. Like
I feel like we are kind of coming across a common theme here right now of just like the X-Men in some way are gonna have to change. Yeah. Like in some significant or not insignificant way, right? Something's going to have to shift. Something's not going to have to change. They can't just do the same. I don't think they can just do the same old squad and tell the same old story again, right? So I'm just really curious what Kevin Feige has on the banner, and I wouldn't be surprised if it makes some people upset, and maybe it makes some people really excited.
House of X and Powers of X was the other one. They were two concurring books. Mm-hmm. So like
that's a cool movie title, Powers of X.
Yeah, so,
that sounds like a badass movie title.
Yeah. So and then later on, the X became the number 10. Like it was X of Swords, but it was like 10 of Swords, because there were like 10 swords in like the X-Men franchise. So like there's ways to use the X, but like like you said, it's gonna have to update itself, and they have in the comic books without using Xavier, and I think there's plenty of opportunities for them there. But going along the list of Marvel Studios dates, July 28th, 23 is rumored for Fantastic Four. So the year beforehand in late July would be Fantastic Four, so late summer would be great. October 6th, 2023 is rumored for Blade.
Great month for Blade for that type of character.
And then there's actually a November 10th, 2023 date they have on the calendar. There are 5 2023 dates right now, which would be the first year we ever had 5 Marvel. Remember when 3 was like a brilliant? So November 2023 could be something brand new that we haven't even thought of yet, or even on this list. But like, there's still a lot of opportunity here to to work with characters in movies along the way. Like, I think November 10th, you know what I would put there, or at least in one of these a Shang-Chi 2 after the success it has.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sure they've been working on the script. I'm sure like they're like, hey, we made some money. Let's go ahead and greenlight it. Go ahead and get it going. And have it turned around in 2 years would be like that. 2 to 3 years would be nothing for them, because I think he's going to be a big player after watching that movie along the way. So, yeah, I'm excited for this. And then also going through your 25 Marvel properties, I still think it's funny. Venom is the first one. Well,
it's the most recent one. That's the whole reason they made the list.
Yeah. Everything else is MCU adjacent, but that one. So that's why I thought it was funny. But anyway. Let's move on to you texted me at like 3 a.m. my time, Mike. I swear to God, or like 2:30.
I knew you would be asleep, but like the person doing these tweets is out here on the West Coast time. So I was like, well, I got to put this on Chris's radar to see if it's even still around by the time he wakes up.
So the showrunner for the New Warriors shares literally a bunch of behind the scenes information, photos, and videos. By the time I wake up 5 hours later, they're gone from the internet. This guy's account is gone.
Which is hilarious, because the one tweet that I shared with you is just him saying like, F this, there's no way I'm deleting this stuff.
Yeah.
Then by the time you wake up, it's all deleted. And then he kind of tongue-in-cheekly blames it on Ryan Reynolds, because he is known for leaking superhero stuff out there on the internet. But this showrunner, I think you say his last name Beagle, Kevin Beagle, does not have the same cachet as Ryan Reynolds. So if somebody tells him to remove stuff from the internet, he'll do it.
So the best way to look at this is by clicking the link in our show notes. There are photos and videos of behind the scenes stuff. There's really no detail. There's no details about this plot or pilot that we wouldn't know, right? It's just him sharing a bunch of behind the scenes photos with the cast and the crew, and kind of cycling through it a little bit. It shows, I believe, Keith, what's his name? Keith Davids? It's a voice actor who voices the Arbiter, was going to voice a early version of MODOK in this show, a live action MODOK. I think that was the biggest reveal, but other than that, you kind of get to see the team together. I think the only person in costume, quote unquote costume, is Squirrel Girl along the way. She has a couple ears and a big tail, and then if you keep going, you get to see the video of Tippy Toe, the animatronic squirrel, who was going to be her sidekick in the movie or TV show. They
show it being kind of like puppeteered by a couple different people. So I think that was kind of fun that they were, maybe trying to do some creative problem solving of, even though this is going to be a live action Marvel property, we don't necessarily have the budget to do maybe a bunch of CG squirrels, every episode. So let's see if we can convincingly do one with a puppet. The actress who plays Squirrel Girl, the AT&T girl, I think her name is like Vanessa or Melissa Vantra or something. I don't remember her name, but she was engaging in the Twitter energy. I think it was like a Thursday night, and she was saying like that her big practical tail on her was gonna be like kind of touched up with CG, and it was gonna be like moving and stuff. So I think it was kind of funny to see like this big practical tail attached to her when they were gonna be doing CG stuff to it. So
and it was a huge tail, by the way. If you don't see the photos, it's like bigger than her upper torso kind of tail.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there was some sort of like maybe a corset maybe thing attached to her just to hold up maybe the volume of the tail. I wouldn't say it looks necessarily big, but you do need like rigid connection points to hold something kind of at that 90-degree angle going up. I thought it was just interesting maybe what spurred this in general, though, because I was trying to find all of his tweets, but only some of them were saved, or like at least the more interesting ones were kind of pushed forward. But apparently he had been holding on to the stuff for a while, and what spurred him to go to the internet was, I guess he came across some sort of like interview or some sort of quote with some sort of executive that was asked what happened to New Warriors, and they said that there was a lack of talent behind the show, and that's why it didn't end up moving forward. And of course, I think that would make the person who put the whole show together really, really upset, and was just like, I can't let this person just out here besmirch me, saying that there wasn't enough talent behind the show. I'm going to push all of this stuff that no one got to see out there online to see that like we were hardworking people trying to put something fun together here for people to enjoy. And then also they said that the whole reason it was canceled is there was just some like stuffy, like rich Brentwood executive, which if you're not familiar with LA, like Brentwood is basically like the beach equivalent to Beverly Hills. And saying that like they thought the show was like too gay, like I'll quote, like the showrunner said, quote unquote, like too gay. And then there was also a screenshot included of a small segment of some dialogue from the script. And it doesn't seem like the show was supposed to be like overtly gay. It just seemed like there was going to be, it was like a cast of like almost like misfits, if you will. Yeah. You know, you're going to have like some people that, you know, just felt like they don't fit in because of, you know, their sexual orientation, or just like maybe their power set was really, really weird. So it was just supposed to be like this gang of misfits trying to come together and create a squad that I guess didn't work out. But I think I think I know what you're about to say. Like the biggest elephant in the room was probably like Jeff Loeb.
Fucking Jeff Loeb. It's fucking Jeff Loeb.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, that's the whole. I think that's honestly the whole reason that the show didn't continue. Yeah. It was Jeff Loeb.
Oh my god, I mean, I'm not saying it's a great show or it was a good show, but this looks a lot more fun and entertaining than any of the other stuff in his later days at Marvel, like Iron Fist, right? Or, you know, the Defenders, anything he did. Inhumans, I'll fall on that sword all day. Like, I'm like, oh, it's Inhumans gonna be great. No, it sucks so hard. But like, my guess is everyone who was on that went along with what he said to get it made, and these people were like, oh, we're having fun, we don't want to go along with you, so they killed it. But like, Jeff Loeb is, I mean, and they even say in one of his texts, like, the person who did this, he got fired, and the only person I can think of who got fired from Marvel Television as a producer was Jeff Loeb when it merged under Kevin Feige's kind of stuff.
Yeah, like who knows? Like even if it was or wasn't Kevin Feige, who is the producer that, I mean, not Kevin Feige, Jeff Loeb, that is being named within this. No matter what would have happened, let's say it did get greenlit, it did get one season, and let's say overall it was positive or even like a halfway decent first season of a show. Kevin Feige was systematically axing all of these Jeff Loeb projects because Disney Plus was taking precedent. Yeah. This is where the corporation of Disney was funneling its dollars is into its streaming service, you know, to just eventually please a board of directors, you know, and the stockholders in general, right? So it's just like, even if the show was great, it probably was going to have like an ill-fated future. But I think the showrunner, Kevin Beagle, would have been happy to just at least make one season. I think he just wanted people, honestly, just to see the work in general, because I got to imagine how difficult that is, right? To just pour your heart and soul into something, and then even when you at least create one thing, right? Even if it's just a pilot, no one gets to see it, which kind of sucks.
And even the guy Kevin, he was like, hey, if this was a bad thing, and it didn't feel good making it, he'd totally shut up and never say anything about it. But he feels like he liked it, right? And it was more of an agenda driven from a producer. So
yeah. And I was just excited to see some of this stuff in general, right? Because like you don't get a whole lot of unproduced, unseen live action Marvel stuff. We have never seen the Most
Wanted stuff yet. Like that spinoff from S.H.I.E.L.D. with Mockingbird. We've never seen a single thing from it yet.
Yeah, I wonder if that even ever reached the pilot
They had one pilot. They had one full pilot episode.
Oh, they did. Yeah. I guess that maybe is a little less exciting because you've already kind of seen the characters, you know, on screen. You could almost just kind of imagine it a little bit if you had to.
Wonder Woman, actually with also Adrian Palicki, that pilot from 2011 eventually leaked online as well, like the full pilot. So it's like, there's no harm in releasing this stuff, but, you know, I was hoping it would leak somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, like, come on, just like give it to some intern off the books. They'll upload it to like Daily Motion or whatever. We don't even have to have it in HD, right? Put it at 480 on like Daily Motion. I'll just watch it there and we can just like see it, right? Yeah. But I just thought it was fun. It was unprecedented. Like, you usually don't see creators leak Marvel stuff. So it's just from like this bygone era of Jeff Loeb that, you know, is dead and gone. So I had my wife works in the industry, and I had her hunting down the pilot script forever. I was like, will you just like reach out to your network, just see if anybody has this pilot script out there? I just want to read it. And, you know, she turned over some stones, never found anything. So I was just excited to see like, oh, the showrunner's doing it for me. So yeah, head on over to our show notes. There's a not the original Twitter thread, because that doesn't exist anymore, but there is a user out there who re-uploaded the stuff. You can see some of the videos and some of the behind the scenes stuff, and some some of the screenshots of the original tweets were, alleging the executives that canceled his show.
If it can be, if it's online, it will be recorded and documented for someone else to post later.
Yeah, actually, I wouldn't be surprised if even the tweets still exist on like archive.org, right? Yeah. You might even be able to go see the original stuff there. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I wouldn't be either. So, yeah, you can check that out below, and always do a quick Google search for New Warriors leaks, and you'll find them pretty quickly. All right, Mike, The Matrix Resurrections. We're here.
Oh, here it is.
Yes. So, The Matrix, the fourth Matrix, directed by Lana Wachowski, half of the original team of The Matrix originators. We got our first trailer out of nowhere. I believe like I want to talk about how they tease the teaser site beforehand, Mike.
Oh, picking your red or blue pill?
You pick the red or blue pill, and then I believe if you pick the one of them, it shows you some clips of footage like really fast, and like these were scenes that would be in the trailer later. But it was really cool, like depending on the time of day and what you chose, it would show you different clips. So it was very randomized.
Oh, I didn't know the time of day was changing. I just figured it was binary, like 1 or 2.
Now, there were like 100,000 different combinations of like small frames you could see.
Oh, cool. That's cool.
Yeah, so I think that experience, that's very Matrixy, right? Like it's the internet kind of thing, using that to our advantage. But then our first trailer dropped, and it's a pretty big trailer. So it's a fairly long trailer. About 3 minutes, and I plug me in. I'm ready to go back into the Matrix. I
have no freaking clue what is going on in this story, and I don't know if that's good or if that's bad. I didn't even realize that Morpheus has been recast. Like, I don't know what happened to Lawrence Fishburne, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what's happened to Lawrence Fishburne, but it was so weird. I almost thought like, is like, oh, is this like supposed to be like Morpheus's son or something? Like, what's going on here? But the reports are that this is literally supposed to be Morpheus. So I don't. But and then some people are saying like, well, this is like this is Neo, and like maybe this is just how it would feel if you were kind of in a new version of the Matrix and you were seeing like an old friend again that you don't really know who they are. So I don't know what meta craziness is going on here, because it's like seeing John Wick in the Matrix. It's just weird.
Right.
I don't really know if I'm positive or negative on this. There's some cool action that seems to be happening in between the scenes that confuse me. There's some familiar looking things of like, normal humans like morphing into agents.
Yep.
But I don't know what's happening. I'm so confused. The last I saw Neo was probably like over 10 years ago. It was probably the last time I watched a Matrix movie, right? And like, wasn't he being like carted off by like a machine like the Messiah to like save the Matrix? Chris, I am not the person that should be talking so much about this.
I can tell.
Please fill me in. I don't know what's happening.
I love the Matrix. I watched the Matrix, especially me, because it was the very first DVD I ever owned, was the Matrix, which is also, again, very telling of like, hey, this is like technology in and of itself. And I would put this on my DVD player and fall asleep to it, because I'm like, oh shit, I got a DVD. I gotta watch it. I have it. And then in 2003, we got The Matrix Revolutions and The Matrix Reloaded, the year of The Matrix, if you will. And those kind of wrapped up the story of Neo and the Matrix and the war of the machines, kind of, if you will. And you're right. At the end of Revolutions, we see Neo has had his eyes burn out completely, right? And he has sacrificed himself by reinserting himself into the code. Now, what we see in this trailer is actually some shots of that movie of him with the eyes burn out, melted, his body's either being rebuilt or like, saved by the machines. And my guess is he is either getting a cloned body that his consciousness will be transferred into, or they're healing his body, and that's why we haven't seen him in 20 years, because it's taken that long to heal him. Now, Carrie-Anne Moss's character, what's her name again? Trinity.
Trinity. That's
she
right.
does die in that movie. So seeing her alive here is definitely bringing up more questions than answers. And like we always talk about, what does technology in the Matrix now look like? Because back then, dial-up phones were still a thing. Dial-up internet was the rage. And why is Morpheus a younger person? Now, I will tell you, I have played the games in the Matrix Online. Morpheus is assassinated and killed. So why would they be a younger version of him in this? And why is there an older John Wick looking version of Neo in this.
I heard this crazy theory. Now, I don't know what is officially out there, right? I don't know what official statements have been slated for this movie. So I don't know if this is just an insane theory that somebody's working on or if it's related to something, but somebody said that this film could be like an alternate version of The Matrix, of like what if Neo took the I don't remember what pills do what, but what if he took a different pill? How would things have changed or something like that? I don't know. That sounds wild.
There is a shot in this later. There's some gunfire kind of going on in like a look like a sprinkler room like going off kind of thing. There's actually they are playing scenes from the original Matrix on a projector hologram in that scene. So my assumption is that's like the Matrix like recorded what he was doing, like Neo was doing in those first, and this is a continuation of that movie. Also, the eyes burnt out like the old body. I believe it's a continuation and it's a resurrection. Again, the first movies I fault them for being too biblical, but what is cool about this is there are going to be homages to the original ones. Like, hey, they're on top of a building. There's rain fights, there's agents morphing. We're going to see a lot of similar stuff. And we get to see Jessica Henwick, who's actually she was in Iron Fist, if you remember. She was a sword girl.
Sure.
Well, I mean, the girl in Iron Fist, right? The one that actually did martial arts. She is the blue-haired girl in here. And there's a scene where Trinity is like yelling, and there's like 5 versions of Trinity around her. Well, if you look, 2 of those are actually Jessica Henwick's character, who we don't know it is. So I have a lot of questions about this and what the Matrix is and like the idea of human consciousness and robots and so on and so forth. But I am very excited to kind of dive back into this movie and kind of see what's going on because, they've updated it. It's the same person. The Wachowskis, whether you love or hate the second and third ones, they do really, really good world building, right? The first Matrix, great. The second one continues that lore and that those rules they set in place.
I suppose you can always appreciate creators that don't hold back, right? Whether it burns or whether it succeeds, at least like they just went crazy with it. Yeah. I feel like there's some sort of contractual obligation to Keanu right now, not cutting any of his hairs. Right? I feel like it would have benefited the movie. Like, okay, he can keep the beard, Actually, I think he kind of looks weird, clean shaven, like from the newer Bill and Ted movie. It just, I think the beard is helping him aged more flawlessly. Like, you can see the veneer a little bit once he shaves. But, like, at least maybe a shorter haircut, I think maybe would sell the idea of Neo. I suppose maybe if the John Wick movies had never come out, this could work. But I feel like everybody is a huge fan of Keanu Reeves, so you just can't disconnect the visuals from those movies to that. So who knows? Maybe that'll all just fade away once you're in the movie, like for 20 minutes, and you won't even be thinking about John Wick anymore. But like, how do you watch this trailer and not just think it's the next John Wick movie, and somehow it got downloaded into the Matrix?
I agree. I wholeheartely. I don't like the John Wick look. I love like when you look at the Matrix, like you see that Neo and Keanu Reeves, you know who it is, right? Like he's very slick back hair, very clean shaven, but like the beard would have been fine. I think the hair is what's bothering me. But there are a couple of shots in here where he's getting out of his like Matrix pod or whatever, like he's disconnecting, and it has him clean shaven. So I don't know if it's a creative choice, and we'll see more later. Is this early on? But I agree with you. I don't like the John Wick look because I'm like, it feels like John Wick, even though it is Keanu Reeves as a whole. Like he just has that John Wick look.
Who knows? Maybe it could be a character moment, right? Like maybe by the end of the movie, he finally like self-actualizes that he, was the one, and then he like, he goes into the bathroom and like shaves his head or something, or gets a haircut, and then we see kind of like more of a classic Neo look and like, a black trench coat or something.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, again, the Matrix is something that against computer program, it reboots, it refreshes, and this Neo is the one, the Messiah being resurrected. It fits into the story really well, and I again, whether you like the Wachowskis or not, they always make visually stunning films, and I think this is going to be up there in terms of visually stunning. And I'm very, like I said at the top show, I'm very excited to go back and watch the 4K Atmos versions of the original ones now that those are streaming.
Yeah, I think I could do a rewatch too. It looks like I got a little bit of time. December 22nd.
December 22nd on theaters and HBO Max. This is the last of the HBO Max day and date releases, Mike. So
I think also Disney has announced that they're going to be continuing the Shang-Chi original OG movie models
Yeah.
where they're going to go exclusive to theaters first. So this Matrix movie landing at the end of December, I think, is Dune first. Like Dune
is October
earlier in December.
22nd or October something.
Oh, that's actually sooner. Yeah. So this Matrix movie right here, this could be almost like coincidentally the last time a big feature movie lands first on a streaming service. I mean, who knows? Maybe in like 10, 20 years, the industry changes again and they go back to releasing straight to streaming. But this could be kind of like our last vestige of that.
Yeah. Well, I think there's an opportunity for studios to make mid to low budget films that are still good that can fit that model.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Netflix does that all
exactly.
the time.
So, but I think Netflix also drops the ball on some of that stuff. I mean, I'm looking at, what was it? The third Cloverfield movie, The Paradox. Woof. Yeah, but.
Did you watch the trailer for, what was it, Red Notice, the one with The Rock, Ryan Reynolds?
Not yet.
And,
not Gal Gadot. No, I've not watched that yet.
Yeah.
No.
It looks like it could be slightly more interesting than a Fast and Furious movie.
Yeah.
So I think that's December as well.
Hopefully all the
so
money didn't go to the talent and not the movie. Because
of course it did. Those actors are expensive as hell.
Especially those three right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
only Netflix could afford that movie.
Well, if anyone else is as big in The Matrix as I am and loves it, let me know. Shoot me a message. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this because I've watched this trailer several times this week. I'm very, very stoked. So it is our favorite time of the show where we get to talk about What If, the latest episode, where we're going to talk about it in full. Spoilers right out the gate. So if you've not watched it, you can pause the episode, go watch it, come back. It's on Disney Plus. It's already streaming. We're always 6 days late on these now because they debut on Wednesday. But so we're going to talk about this week's What If, which is one of the I think the biggest questions we've had was the what if zombies is the name of the title.
I would say the most anticipated, just because it's based off of a very kind of popular, iconic comic book run.
Yeah.
And I don't think really they've billed any of the other What If episodes necessarily off of a pre-existing comic book story. I mean, I might be wrong, but that's kind of what it seems like to me.
Captain Carter, I think, has been pretty close. The Star-Lord one wasn't. I forget, the third one wasn't. Yeah, no, this is probably the most close to a comic book thing. But I will tell you right now, if you have read the comic book and you're wanting to see the same, this is not the same thing. And very much because this is the show's basically MCU stuff. What is it? MCU stuff. So if you look at the comic book, like they've already established everybody in the comic books by that point, and then the zombies come. It's a whole different story. So What If Zombies is a very telling point in the MCU, which starts with the whole inciting incident here is Janet Van Dyne got infected by a zombie virus in the quantum realm rather than actually gaining magical powers.
Yeah, I actually really liked the inciting incident, too, because I did think, okay, well, where exactly does this infection come from? How would this happen? And I was like, oh, this is smart. We don't really know much about the quantum realm yet. It's not totally unbelievable that going to this very mysterious place could bring back something pretty bad that nobody really knows how to solve or figure out. You know, it wasn't some sort of weird lab leak experiment, something from 28 Days Later or something like that. So I was like, okay, this is good. This was some good creative problem solving to get kind of zombies out there into the world.
Yeah, and this is it makes sense too, because we've always talked about why did Janet have magic powers right when she came out of there? Well, she could have contracted any number of viruses down there. One of them just happens to be the zombie virus, and I think. While I think this is a good episode, Mike, I think this suffers the most from trying to fit every zombie movie trope into a 22-minute episode. Literally, if you can think of it in a zombie movie, it happened in this episode.
Okay. Well, okay. Now I'm kind of getting to the point where I feel like we might be on the same level here. There are some things I liked about this episode and some things I didn't like. So I'm glad I didn't go in with super high expectations because I think a lot of people are like, oh, this is going to be really, really cool. Zombies and Marvel. And I like I said, I like the idea of the inciting incident. I thought Tom Holland's voice acting replacement was actually really, really good. I didn't feel like I was missing out on Tom Holland at all. So I feel like they are safe to plow forward doing Spider-Man, what if animated stuff with this voice actor. You know, I didn't have any weird kind of feelings of ooh, this doesn't doesn't feel right.
My wife thought it was Tom Holland until I told her. She's like, you're lying. I'm like, no, it wasn't.
Oh, that's great. I think the thing that drags us way down more than anything is the weird Mind Stone Vision Wanda stuff.
Yeah.
It just, I feel like it could have been literally anything else. Like, why, like, they have like this kind of one-off reasoning of like why the Mind Stone would heal a zombie. It's like, okay, I guess, you know, but like then Wanda's in the mix, and now and it's like Vision. I feel like even though we have the whole WandaVision thing of, you know, them falling in love, I feel like he should kind of know better. But it was pretty gruesome though that he was feeding T'Challa's leg to her. Like that was pretty gruesome. Even though it did seem out of character, I was like, wow, okay, I'm surprised they went there.
There's
you know?
two things. I want to say they never actually showed anyone cured with a Mind Stone, other than saving Scott's conscience in a fully human head. So I think the Mind Stone curing them was just a big hoax that never was going to happen. But I love that it's the opposite of WandaVision, like where Wanda was trying to bring the Vision back to life and he's trying to bring her back to life this time, which I thought was an interesting parallel in storytelling. And then he's like, yeah, I guess you're right, you know, this is it. But like but before, because I don't want to forget it. His turn was very quick and a little unbelievable too. He went from like this psychotic android feeding the Black Panther's leg to a Wanda, then to all of a sudden go like, oh no, I guess I was, you know, I guess I was a dick. That was probably a bad idea. It's like, okay. As far as we know, he didn't kill anybody. He was just giving her parts of people.
I would say that's worse, Chris. I feel like it would have been better if he killed them.
Let me get to the next point. The whole point of that is actually something they did in the comic books. That whole thing right there with Black Panther like being fed to zombies was something they actually did in the comic books, which is the only thing that is parallel to the Marvel zombie storyline.
Yeah, that's honestly, that's pretty metal. That's pretty cool.
So
it was pretty cool to see Hope or Janet. Which one's the younger
Janet
one?
was the mom. Hope was the...
Yeah, that's right. It's pretty cool to see Hope to come back as a big zombie, even though it didn't really culminate to anything super exciting. But I was just like, oh, she's going to come back as a zombie big. And I was like, it happened.
Well, that was the other thing.
Cool.
I'm like, they know she's going to die and come back as a zombie. Why didn't she? I thought she was going to blow her body up or something like... Or like shrink to like small size until she was gone. That way she couldn't hurt anybody. I thought that was interesting. To me, it's there's a lot like you have your Zombieland Spider-Man trope at the beginning. It's like, here's your video of like how to survive the zombie apocalypse. I was like, that one like graded me quite a bit. Like compared, like that was essentially a Zombieland ripoff kind of thing in this. But I think the collaboration of characters who survived was very interesting, right? Like the Warriors, Okoye, Bucky, Bruce, he just showed up. He was actually the person who just kind of got thrown into it a little bit. And who else was there? Agent Carter, I believe. Happy Hogan, who had the armband shooter. Who else was in there? Am I missing somebody else? I feel like I'm missing one person, but I don't remember.
Well, if you're missing them, this one really feels like it's pitched for a sequel, right? This seems way more open-ended than any of the other ones that we've seen. You know, it ends on a big mission cliffhanger. They open up showing us zombie Iron Man, and that never comes back around again. Bucky kind of gets thrown off into the horizon, into the distance, and he doesn't make it. Yeah, and then the Hulk sitting down there. One thing that really bugged me, and I don't know if I'm just looking into this too much, because this is like a really conflicting thing once you bring this type of storytelling to animation, right? If this was live action, right? If these were real people being filmed in front of a camera, and then they were postulating this idea of a zombie cure, somebody's going to have to bring up the idea the zombies we've been seeing have limbs missing. They have chunks missing out of their face and stuff like that. What happens when you have to visualize that when they get healed, right? Like, is it going to be some sort of like a magic where they just phase shift back into being like normal humans? Or is this actually a virus? Because I feel like in an animated world, okay, I guess I don't have to think about that too much, but this is billed as like not just your average animated series. This is ingrained within the architecture of the MCU. So, like, I know we have, like you said, we haven't seen anybody healed yet beyond Scott and his, like, Futurama tank, which, you know, was pretty funny. You know, I didn't think that was, like, too bad, but it's just, like, I don't think there can really be any cure here, because I saw a zombie with half a face missing. What happens when you heal him? He's going to be screaming from pain because he has half a fucking face.
That's not a cure.
You know?
That's not a cure. The cure is like when Hope got bitten. You give her the cure so she doesn't turn into a full zombie. It's not turning everybody back. It's just like, we can stop the infection in case, you know, you get something on you, kind of thing. But she did do that one thing where she went into somebody and then expanded
and exploded.
Yeah, so
oh my god, that was actually really, like, I'm telling you, they're doing everything except showing you what if Ant-Man crawled up Thanos' pant leg, right? Which is, I think, is pretty funny.
Yeah, and then they could. So I thought it was interesting. The end team of the 3 people were actually Spider-Man and 2 people who weren't even in the whole episode, because Scott and Panther were the only 2 people who made it out of out of Vision's thing that we know of at this time. The teaser was always Captain America as a zombie, and he got split in half pretty early on, like pretty quickly as well.
Bucky finally got the shield too.
And so the other thing would be, you know, they're really flying to zombie Thanos, who has a gauntlet missing a Mind Stone. So I think a lot of these do deserve sequels and kind of see what they go, but I think this one kind of grated me the most because it's full of tropes and nothing felt original, right? Like, you know, the keeping your zombie love alive, like they do that in every movie. Like Dawn of the Dead with from Zack Snyder, they did that with like one of the people. Like, where was the originality here, Mike? That's my question. It doesn't feel very, you know, noteworthy, if you will, in terms of the what if episodes. I think the animation was great. I think the voice acting is great. I think they're nailing it. It's still good, but like of the 5 we've seen, like this is still not my top one out of these yet.
Yeah. I mean, also, like, surprise, surprise, the most important thing out of a what if series is the what if, right? It is the writing. So you kind of have to make sure you have a really solid idea. So, I mean, yeah, like I said, it was fine. There's some good stuff. There's some not so good stuff. You know, we're lucky here that we're kind of like in an anthology that we're not so committed. Like, you know, if this was like a live action movie and this was something that was going to be more iterated on heavily with a lot more money and resources, like, you know, we probably harp on it a little bit more. But, you know, we'll move on in just a couple more days. It's Sunday. We're just a couple more days from the next one. You know, move on to the next.
We don't know what that is usually until like Monday or Tuesday, so that's really fun to kind of speculate. A couple left, four left, 1 month's worth. One of the things I always enjoy is the Funko reveal. And I did not. They already did what if Funkos for the whole series. I didn't know they had a whole series based on the zombies coming out. And they dropped these in here, including, again, Doctor Strange, Iron Man, the Falcon, who was in there for a little bit, Scarlet Witch, Captain America. So I thought these were kind of cool little Funkos.
There should be a Wong one that has the sling ring around his neck, and then like the head is like removable, like maybe like a magnet or something.
They did that for Game of Thrones the first season. Whenever what's his name, Ned?
With Ned Stark. I didn't know they did that.
Magnetic head for that.
That's
too.
Funny.
But yeah, I mean it's okay episode. I nothing against it, but it's like not my favorite one. But again, it's because literally I've seen everything they've done in there a million times, and I want a little originality. So I do in the original Marvel Zombies, I will tell you the inciting hero is the Sentry, so that's a little special to me. And the reason it gets fixed or at least contained is because of the Watcher, and he did nothing in this episode. So a little disappointed with that, but you know, whatever. And if you're interested in that original series, it's written by Robert Kirkman of Walking Dead fame. So check that out. Mike, that's our episode. That's it. This is one of our longer ones here. I'm excited.
This was a good. We had a lot of fun stuff to talk about.
I honestly, when I wrote the notes, I'm like, there's not a lot to talk about this week. We're gonna breeze through it. Was I wrong? So can I go back and do that? But yeah, anyway, Mike, if people know what you're up to, what you're doing this week, where can they find you at?
Well, they can find me at Mike Royer Design on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and you can read my webcomics at pickledcomics.com. Chris, if people want to catch up with you, see what you're doing, where can they find
me? On Instagram, Valdan87, or Twitter, Valdan, VALDAN, if you want to know. And you can listen to the show every week. If people want to know more about our show, more about our stuff, more about our upcoming Venom review we're going to be doing, our last week's Shang-Chi review, where can they find those at?
Well, all you got to do is visit Superhero Slate HQ, which is superheroslate.com. That's the best place to find all the avenues we host our show and to get our very, very awesome show notes. I've never seen so many show notes before in one of our news episodes, and these are a lot of really fun links. So head on over to superheroslate.com if you want to click on all of these many things that we talked about this week. And you can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you love to listen to fine podcasts. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and you can get merch at superheroslate.com/store. We love hearing from you. Please reach out. Let us know what you're watching, what you're reading, what you're playing. What are you thinking of the Marvel What If series so far? What was your least favorite episode? What's your favorite? What are you looking forward to the most? When do you think we'll get that Hawkeye trailer? What are you thinking? Let us know. Please reach out. If you want to be a super fan of the show, go back. If you know an explanation for the Matrix trailer, if you know what's happening here, if you're like one of those deep lore people, like, that reads the Sol Meridian and like knows all of like the backstory to like Halo, if you're like one of those people with the Matrix and you think you have an idea of what's going on here, reach out and let me know. I would just like to know. So if you want to be a super fan of the show, all you got to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy, make sure that you're vaccinated, and we will be here every week, folks.
That's right.
That's all from me.
That's all from you. Well, we'll see you guys next week.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.
Vampire Hershey Kisses taste more like cherry than strawberry, by the way. They're more like chocolate-covered cherries.
Oh,
Just
okay.
Heads up.